Yeah, I mean, I personally I hate the word influencer, right? I don't know why we've given these individuals like a new name.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindset Podcast. Today, we are joined by our fellow entrepreneur, podcaster, and LinkedIn influencer, if I might add, Justin Nguyen. Thank you so much for joining us, Justin. Why don't you go ahead and tell our viewers a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much. I mean, you said it, you nailed it right on the head. Basically, I run a company called Get Your Grind Up, and the whole purpose of that is to help college students navigate through their career. And I don't make any money from that. Everything that I do is I give it away for free to college students. So the way that I'm able to subsidize that at all is by creating content on LinkedIn and then doing LinkedIn consulting for companies and personal brands. So that's what I've been doing over the past 6 to 8, 10 months or so, and it's been a super interesting journey that I would have never traded for anything other or anything else in the world.
Nice. Justin, I love your vibe, your bravado, what you bring to the table. I'm a big fan of your podcast. Gabe and I have listened to some of your episodes, and you have a very interesting journey that I want you to share with all of us. Rumor has it that you turned down a very promising position at a large, one of the largest accounting firms, one of the four biggest ones that you had an offer for. So you turned that down so that you can start your own business as a LinkedIn consultant. Why don't you share with us a little bit about that and how you got started with that?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it didn't really make any sense. I didn't have much. I had momentum for the podcasting side, but the podcast wasn't bringing in any huge revenues or anything like that. From the LinkedIn consulting side, it was more of an idea to turn something that people were asking me to do into basically a business. But I worked my butt off in college. Coming from a non-target school, it's almost impossible to get a job offer from one of the big four accounting firms to do consulting. So I had ultimately reach my goal that I wanted to do in terms of college achievements, so to say. And I got there. But what I realized was I wouldn't be able to pursue the passions that I wanted to if I had taken that job. It would be working anywhere between 50 to probably close to 80 during tax week, hours a week. And with that, when I looked at that, having a girlfriend, and everything kind of combined, I wouldn't really have time to do the things that I wanted to do, which was really get your grind up. So when I took a step back and I looked at it, I was like, I can probably make a solid amount of income to live by doing LinkedIn consulting and still have so much more time to continue to grow this passion project on the side. And it's really been amazing, the opportunities that I've been able to do over the past like 6 to 8 months or so while doing the LinkedIn consulting. But it's been the ability to have such a flexible schedule that I think I've benefited from the most, besides everything COVID related kind of ruining a few things.
And Justin, what exactly do you do as far as LinkedIn consulting? Like, walk us through what your job is, what it entails. Because I personally didn't know what it was until we met you. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are also wondering the same thing. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on your end goal. For the most part, I work with businesses and the executive team on businesses. So the way that the LinkedIn algorithm works is they don't really favor company pages. So I teach individuals how they can build up their personal brand to become a thought leader, and then turning their LinkedIn profile into a landing page rather than a resume, so that when someone goes to their LinkedIn profile, they know exactly what the product is about, their service is about, and then they can click onto their website to find out a little bit more.
Mm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's amazing with this influencer word being thrown around everywhere. I'm just curious to know. I mean, me personally, like Anthony mentioned, I would have never thought, your type of business, your line of work was even a necessity with LinkedIn. And over the past couple of years, I've actually grown more into the LinkedIn software, into the program, gotten to know a little bit more about the algorithm, how it works. But I'm curious to know, like, why LinkedIn? Why not Instagram? Why not be an influencer on Twitter or now TikTok? Like, why did you just decide to go the LinkedIn route, and how has that really paid off for you long run?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I set out to become a LinkedIn influencer, right? I started off in college. The reason that I started to create content on LinkedIn was because I wanted to differentiate myself from the other 70,000 students that were graduating from UCF. So I was like, okay, let me get on this platform and just mess around with it because everyone was telling me that you need to get on LinkedIn and use it. So I started to mess around with it, and one thing led to another. I realized that people were creating content on there. And at this time I was posting on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and stuff for Get Your Grind Up. And we were growing, but at nowhere near a good enough like pace to prove something out, so to say. So then I started to create content on LinkedIn around my student journey. And then I created a post where I tagged a few like really big LinkedIn influencers, and they all commented on it. And I remember sitting in class, in my economics class, and I was next to my boy, and the post went from 0 views, 10,000 views in like 30 minutes, 20,000 views in like an hour. And I was like tapping my boy on the shoulder, like, dude, what's going on right now? Like, I'm definitely not paying attention to class. And I'm just like, bro, look at how many views and comments that this post is getting. And I think it ended off at like 40 or 50,000 views or something like that. But this was at a time when I had 200 connections. So imagine 200 followers on Instagram or Twitter, and then getting 50,000 views on a random post that you put out. Right. So that sort of started me down the journey of creating content on LinkedIn. And what I found is the reason that my content resonates on LinkedIn compared to an Instagram or Twitter is because the people that are on the platform are looking for that stuff, right? If you're going to Instagram, you're looking at really aesthetically pleasing photos, Instagram models, whatever that may be. But when you're going on to LinkedIn, you're looking for something a little bit more professional and maybe something that you can relate a little bit more to. And that's why me talking about my student journey, I think, has resonated with not just my followers, but people who see my content on a daily basis.
Justin, I've studied LinkedIn a little bit in the last, I would say maybe 2 to 3 months. I've really been paying attention to LinkedIn and what people post. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is my personal opinion. I really believe that LinkedIn is going towards an Instagram feel, kind of deviating a little bit away from the whole just looking for jobs to more posting things, everyday things. So to me, it's feeling a little bit more Instagram-y, if you will. Am I right on that? Is that the direction that LinkedIn is going in?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, they're definitely moving more to content-based stuff, whether that's photos or trying to be like your highlight reel of your career, so to say. I do see that, and I understand where they're going with that. I don't necessarily agree with it. I kind of like the old LinkedIn where it was more journey and like lesson and education focused, so to say. Now, like the biggest posts right now are, which I understand because of the times, are like interns and individuals that are getting laid off because of coronavirus, right? And they're going completely viral. And I get that. It's a great story, and hopefully it helps them find another position. But I want more content that makes me want to keep seeing, right? If I see 5 posts in a row of the same sort of story, it's a little bit of like, oh my God, this feels like Instagram where everyone's just posting a selfie again. I want it to be more lessons, things that I can understand from, whether it's business leaders or other students talking about their journey and things like that. That's what I go to LinkedIn for. And I hope that that's what sort of stays consistent over the next few years or so.
Yeah.
How
No,
many connections do you have?
I think connections I have 5,000-6,000 or so. And then followers I have almost 7,500.
Wow.
So walk me through it, because again, I'm still kind of getting acquainted with, with the whole LinkedIn algorithm and how it works. I still can't get it right. What's the difference between a connection and a follower? Because we don't,
Yeah.
you don't have followers on. I mean, you don't have connections on Instagram or on Twitter. Like, what's the dynamic there?
Yeah, of course. So for connections, right, there's sort of 3 degrees of connections. You have your 3rd degree connection, which we'll use all 3 of us as an example, right? Let's say before we knew each other, you two would both be 3rd degree connections from me. So we would have no real relation to each other. We have no one connecting to us. But let's say I was connected to Gabe, right? What that would mean is Gabe is now my first connection, and then you are my second connection because you're connected to Gabe. So does that make sense?
Okay.
So that's what a second connection is. But the connection number that you see by your name, that comes from 1st degree connections. So that means you try to connect with them and then they accept it, or they try to connect with you and you accept it. When it comes to followers are the same exact thing as any other platform. when you go to someone's profile, you can either click connect, message, or follow. And if they click follow, then they just follow you and you don't necessarily see their content. But if you're connected with someone, their content can pop up on your feed.
Justin, I applaud you for two reasons. Number one, the story that you told us was very inspiring. The fact that your parents and society and your friends, the people around you, really wanted you to go one direction as far as careers, right? They wanted you to be maybe a doctor or a lawyer or etc. But you decided to go a different route, one that's very unconventional, something that a lot of people haven't heard about before. But you decided that you wanted to do that because you were passionate about that. I applaud you with that, without even knowing if you're successful or not. That's a huge step. That's a huge leap of faith. And I applaud you for that. Gabe and I talk about it a ton on this podcast, about taking that leap of faith, failing big. If you're going to fail big, fail on what you want to do, on your own sort. So I applaud you for that. Number two, I applaud you because you've been very successful in what you've done, right? You've told us that you have 5,000, 6,000 connections. I'm curious to know, because a lot of people have different experiences. Everybody that we ask this question has different answers. And the question is, who do you credit your success to? A lot of people have said it's themselves. They've had nobody but themselves. Some people have said family. Who do you credit your success to?
I mean, I guess the biggest turning point for me, because if you look back at my high school and you talk to any of my high school friends, I was really that lazy kid. I've always been gifted in school where I never necessarily had to study to get good grades. And so I sort of slacked off. And then on the soccer field, I was really gifted in terms of like my skill and my touch and my passing ability. So I wasn't known as a kid that would run a lot. I was known as a kid in the middle that would pass the ball around. So talk to my high school friends and they'll tell you that story. But what sort of happened, I want to say my senior year going into my freshman year, my grandparents had, I believe, their like 50th anniversary or something, 45th anniversary or something like that. And my aunt did a presentation. I know this is very Asian, right? Who does a presentation at a wedding or an anniversary? But there's this presentation about like my grandparents coming over to the United States. And it really highlighted my grandfather. So I didn't know that he tried to escape from Vietnam 3 times. He got caught twice, and the third time they were like, "Hey, if we catch you again, you're going to jail." And what he decided to do is he split their family into 2 groups of 4, and they didn't see each other for 2 years while they were trying to get over to the U.S. Of like, one family came over, luckily they got picked up by a Navy ship, and then the second family came over, and then somehow, without like cell phones and internet or anything, they found each other in the United States. And then he graduated college in 2 years without knowing English. And I'm like, if this guy, my grandfather, right, can graduate college without knowing English in engineering in 2 years, I literally have no excuse, right? And it wasn't even like a BS degree. It was in engineering. And then he also has his name on several patents on like the first computer fans. So I'm like, well, okay, why am I getting mad at myself? Like, why am I being so lazy that I can't study for that assessment, or I can't even like go out and go for a jog or something like that? So when I realized that, I was like, okay, I need to stop BSing myself. I need to really get your grind up and start doing the work. And so that was the huge sort of turning point in terms of my work ethic and really trying to find that thing that I was passionate about and helping out the world.
Well, I mean, that's truly inspiring, especially, with your background. And I have a similar background too. It doesn't go that far back, but, short context, my parents also came here from Brazil with little to no money in their pocket. So I can completely relate to your story. And again, this question is something that a lot of our guests, and even me and Anthony, we talk about all the time. And everyone has different perspective on what success is. For me personally, and I'm sure Anthony can agree with me, is, success is one, leaving behind a legacy to our kids, our grandkids, and much like your grandfather did to you. And then second is, we don't want to get to the top of the mountain and look around and no one be there. We want to look around the mountain and have, all of our buddies, all of the, Anthony's, the Justins, all of our friends there with us. If we can help do that, then that's success. I'm curious to know, what's your take on what's your definition of success?
Yeah, for me, I mean, successful is just being happy. I mean, I know it's cliche or not, right? But I've really found that yes, I could probably make a crap ton more money than I am right now by just sort of selling more of my consulting to more people and taking up more of my time. But I'm very content with the amount of money that I'm making. Maybe I want a little bit more, but doing that and then having the freedom before COVID to travel the world, do speaking engagements. Like for instance, I got flown out to Dubai in October, and I was like to go talk about LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, so this is like,
Wow.
yeah. So that was sort of
Wow.
the confirmation, right, to get over that imposter syndrome of, okay, maybe I'm doing something legitimate and people actually care about what I'm doing. Let me continue to do this so that success for me is being able to provide for my family, myself, but also living the life that I actually want to live, because I know people who make a ton of money, like good six figures. But then I talk to them and they're like, man, I wish I couldn't travel that, like, I wish I didn't have to travel that much, or I wish I couldn't do this, because they feel that they need to do that for their family or their kids or whatever it may be. And I'm like, I don't want to be in that position. I always want to be doing something for a legitimate reason and not just to put more dollars into my bank account, so to say.
Mm. Yeah, you clearly work very hard. The little that I've known you, and Gabe has known you for a little bit longer, but the little that I've gotten to know you and speak to you over the phone, it's clear and evident that you work very hard for what you want, for what you get. Obviously, the results show you clearly are very successful in your field. How much of your success do you attribute to luck? Because some people do get really lucky. How much do you attribute to luck, and how much do you attribute to the skills and to the work ethic that you put in every single day?
I mean, I think there's luck in any success, right? I think anyone who tells you other than that, then they're probably lying. But what sort of luck happens, like why are some people more lucky than others, is because they just end up showing up every single day, right? If you try to do something two times and it doesn't happen to you, you might call yourself unlucky. But if you try to do something 100 times, right, and then it works out once or twice during that 100 times, then you're sort of seen as lucky to those other people. And that's what people don't understand. Like if you look at Ninja, people will say, oh, he just got lucky because he blew up and got to stream with Drake. But you look at the dude's career and he's been doing it for like 10 plus years. He's been showing up every single day for like 10 years. So that sort of pays off for some people. You do have to get lucky. Not every streamer that's been streaming for 10 years got the chance to go stream with Drake and sort of blew up his career. Not everyone did that.
Mm.
But I don't think Ninja would be where he is if he didn't stream for those 10 years.
Mm.
Absolutely. I mean, my take on that question is you have to be prepared for the opportunity. I think luck, that's exactly what luck is. You know, a lot of people, they're waiting for their big break. They want to get lucky, but they might not even be prepared when opportunity comes knocking on their door. You know, so I feel, in my opinion, you know, exactly what you said. A lot of people, they credit their success to luck, but it's a combination of both things. You have to be prepared for that opportunity to come when it comes knocking. And, you know, leading into my next question, and I'm sure, you know, this is kind of like a, you know, a rhetorical question, but I want to get more of your take on it, besides the title influencer. But again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, this title influencer, you know, whether you're an Instagram influencer or a LinkedIn influencer, which, by the way, Anthony and I didn't even know was a thing before we met you. But it's been thrown around a lot. It's been, you know, used very loosely. I'm curious to know, like, do you consider yourself an influencer, even if LinkedIn wasn't around? Do you still consider yourself a person of influence?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I hate the word influencer, right? I don't know why we've given these individuals like a new name. There's no difference between Logan Paul and Will Smith before he became like a YouTube influencer and everything like that, right? They're just celebrities in the limelight who have people's attention. And for me, I never really considered myself an influencer. I just use that word sometimes because it makes it easier for some people to comprehend, of like in terms of what I do, of like content creation and such. But I mean, I don't think I don't think most influencers set out to become influencers. It's just something that sort of happened to them along the way. Like with me, I just created content because I wanted people to better understand the college landscape. I figured out what I call these cheat codes while going through college, and I want to share it to other individuals because I know that people don't know what these things are. Right? Both of my parents are immigrants. They didn't tell me that you need to understand how to actually network, how to build a LinkedIn profile, all these little things. They just told me get good grades and then the job will sort of follow. And that's what I was told, not just by my parents, but by a lot of people growing up. So once I found these sort of cheat codes and these hacks and these secrets that a lot of these successful individuals were doing, I want to just share their wealth. And that's what I was doing originally on LinkedIn. And then now it's sort of turned into this whole movement and podcast and everything like that, where it's amazing sort of what we're able to do.
I was going to say, do you think that when someone gains popularity or when they gain fame, does that automatically make them a quote unquote influencer?
I mean, yes and no. It really depends on, I guess it depends on what your definition of influencer is. If you ask the general public, I think most people will just say, oh, it's just once you hit a threshold of followers, you become an influencer. But I think anyone who's actually in the industry, you're going to look at conversion rates, engagement, all these sort of things. For instance, we sort of know because we're younger and we probably pay attention to it of if you see someone on Instagram with like 100,000 followers and they put something up and they have like 50 likes, then you're like, are they actually an influencer? But if they went to like a small business or something like, hey, we're an influencer, they might believe them just because of that sticker value of their 100K followers. So I think it depends on who you're asking. Anyone who's actually in the industry knows what an influencer can do if they position it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the society that we're in, again, uses this word very loosely. And again, like you said, businesses might get tricked. I mean, people might get tricked just by a number count that are on the top of someone's profile. But, something that one of my favorite leaders, Craig Groeschel, said is that basically everyone has influence, whether it is on social media, whether it is on LinkedIn, even if it's just your small group of 3 friends, you have an influence. Like, it doesn't matter how big or small your audience is, but you really do have an influence on whoever it is, even on your parents. Like you said, you're doing something greater. And it all goes back to your background, to your history of how your parents got here. And, that influences other people, because there's a lot of people like you that might have come from different countries or whatever the case is. And they want to follow up to someone in your footsteps. They want to be relatable. And a lot of people, I mean, you look at like the Kim Kardashians, all these big influencers of the world, like you can't even get on a phone call with one of those guys,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that type of thing. It's also, I feel like, personal touch is everything. Personal connection is so much more important than really a number count on the top of your profile. So again, I applaud you for everything that you're doing. And I love the definition that you gave as far as influencer, because you couldn't have said it any better.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, like, I think we understand, right? Because we sort of grew up with Instagram and Twitter and all these things, and we understand what a bot is. But for the 40, 50-year-old even that is running a business, they're just understanding social media now and they see a big number. I mean, I've been pitched just because I took the meeting as a joke just to see what some of these kids would like tell me what they were doing. They're like, oh yeah, I run a social media marketing agency. I'm like, and they're like, we can help you grow to X amount of followers. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, tell me how are you doing it? Like, oh, we have this algorithm that like follows people. And then if they don't follow back, then we unfollow them and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, so you're just building up like fake influence. And then they like challenge me and blah, blah, blah. But there's kids making a boatload of money off of basically selling followers to individuals, and they just don't understand. And part of what I do too is like to educate the older audience on LinkedIn, especially too, because I'm like, hey, like watch out for this stuff. It's fake, because I don't feel right selling something like that. Which again, if you have no morals, it's very easy to make money right now through the internet.
Yeah.
It's so sad to see. Gabe and I see it. I mean, Gabe's in the whole marketing world as far as marketing with different companies, so he knows all about it, and I've learned a little bit about it too. It's ridiculous. I mean, I see even some of my friends who don't even have a business that just buy thousands of followers. They have 30K. I go to their latest post and they probably have 200 likes. Like, come on, man, get out of here. Like, it's so obvious and it's so ridiculous. It's really sad to see that. But it just shows in the kind of the society that we live in. People are just buying things to look a certain way. Very materialistic, very, how they care so much about their appearance. But Gabe and I preach that the best way to do business with people or with yourself is to be authentic. Be who you are. Like, if you have 2,000, 1,000, 500 followers, just accept it, and embrace that and move forward with that. But, it's sad to see that. Justin, last question for you. I'm so excited to see what you do with your career. I know LinkedIn consulting is just the surface of what you're going to do. You might even blow that up and go on to something else. What's next for you? What does the next chapter for Justin Nguyen look like?
I think the next chapter for me is when I don't have to do the LinkedIn consulting, or I only do it when the money is right. And Get Your Grind Up and Declassified College become self-sustaining. So really, the end goal of everything is to build up this large community. We have an idea for a web app to come out, but we just have to find the right tech co-founder to build that. The last thing right now on our list of our like 5-10 year plan, so to say, is to build out a South by Southwest, but for career fairs. So career fairs are very boring. For the most part, it's like here's a table, here's some pamphlets, and then here, go sign up for our internship online. And it's very uninteractive when it comes to both the employer side and the student side. We want to build something that's way more interactive and attracts students to come, and then having some fun things associated with it, whether it's concerts or interactive booths, whatever it may be, to make it more of an experience, which our generation loves, rather than just something that we have to check off to go to because our teacher told us and we're getting extra credit for it, or anything like that, because that just doesn't breed good engagement for both the employers and the students looking for internships.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I mean, it's exactly right. When I was in high school, I would honestly just get out of class just to go to those career fairs, just so I wouldn't have to, sit through geometry. So it's exactly
Exactly.
right. I mean, I'm super excited to see what you do, and in your career and the scaling of your business. But again, on behalf of the Mindset Podcast, Anthony and I, we're so lucky to have you on today as a guest. We always say this is beyond a podcast. We like to create relationships with our guests, and we're super excited to see what plans come to fruition in your life in the next 5 to 10 years. So again, thank you so much for joining us. For all our viewers, where can they find you? Where can they see your podcast or listen to your content?
Yeah, so if you want to check out the podcast, it's Declassified College, and you can find that on pretty much any podcasting platform that is out there. So just look up Declassified College. And then if you want to get in touch with me, just connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me that this podcast sent you. And my LinkedIn is linkedin.com/IN/Justin GCGU. So just type that in up on the top search bar, and then you should come to my profile. Send me a personalized connection request because I don't accept any that aren't personalized. And then let me know that this podcast sent you.
Awesome, Justin. Thank you so much again. Can't wait to keep connecting with you. Good luck to you, man.
Thank you. You guys as well.